It's the middle of the night, when everything is completely silent. But you're just wide awake. If you've ever found yourself just staring up at the ceiling in those pre-dawn hours, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's this mix of frustration, a little bit of anxiety, and just that quiet dread of how tired you're going to be tomorrow. But what if I told you that this middle-of-the-night wake-up call isn't a glitch? What if it's actually a kind of whisper from our own history? Let's get into it.
I mean, it's an incredibly common thing, right? That specific time, somewhere between 2 and 4 a.m., when the next day feels a million miles away, and sleep, well, sleep feels even further. You probably toss and turn, you check the time, you feel that familiar wave of, oh no, not again. But the real question is, why? Why does this happen so consistently to so many of us?
Okay, now this is the big idea we're going to explore today. And it kind of flips the whole problem on its head. Instead of seeing this wakefulness as a failure, what if it's actually an opportunity? A moment of what we're calling cognitive quiet, that your brain is just desperately craving in our nonstop overstimulated world.
But let's be real. When it's actually happening, it does not feel like an opportunity. It feels like a problem. Your first thought is probably, great, I have insomnia. And that's followed really fast by this loop of worries about how you're even going to function the next day. And that, right there, is where the real trouble begins.
So there's a psychological term for that worry cycle, rumination. It's when your mind gets stuck on a negative thought, like a hamster on a wheel, just playing it over and over and over. You're not actually problem solving, you're just dwelling. And all that does is ramp up the stress and make it totally impossible to relax and get back to sleep. It's basically the engine of 3 a.m. anxiety.
So much of this anxiety comes from this one single modern idea that we are supposed to sleep in one solid 8-hour block. And if we don't hit that target, we feel like we failed. But has it always been this way? Well, it turns out the answer is a big, resounding no.
Okay, so let's jump in a time machine for a second. Let's go way back, before the Industrial Revolution, before electric lights completely changed our whole relationship with nighttime. Historical research has uncovered a totally different and, maybe a more natural pattern of how humans used to sleep.
A historian named A. Roger Ekirch found just a mountain of evidence, everything from old diaries to court records that describe this pattern, which is known as segmented sleep. People would go to bed, they'd sleep for a few hours, and then they'd wake up for an hour or two, and then they'd go back to sleep for a second time until morning. This wasn't seen as insomnia, it was just normal.
Now, when you see it laid out like this, the contrast is kind of wild, isn't it? Our ancestors had 2 distinct sleeps, and that wakeful period in between, that wasn't a time for anxiety. It was actually a valued part of the night. Today, we demand this one perfect, uninterrupted block, and pretty much anything else gets labeled a disorder.
So what were they doing with all this time? Well, they used it. This nightly resurrection, as it was sometimes called, was a time for quiet activities, for connecting with family, and for introspection. It really shows what we've lost, a built-in time for privacy, intimacy, and self-reflection. All the things we struggle to find time for in our crazy busy lives.
Okay, so history suggests waking up might actually be kind of natural. But what's happening in our modern bodies? Let's pivot from history to physiology. Because sometimes that 3 a.m. jolt isn't just an echo of the past. It has a very real, physical, metabolic trigger happening right here, right now. So there are 2 key patterns that could be at play here. On one hand, you've got the Somogyi Effect. That's where your blood sugar crashes overnight. Your body kind of panics and releases stress hormones like cortisol to fix it, which, jolts you awake. On the other hand, the dawn phenomenon is an early morning rise in blood sugar, which can also disrupt sleep and make you feel really restless.
And the good news is we can actually troubleshoot this. Think of yourself as a sleep detective. Your evening habits have a huge impact. Did you eat a big, high-carb meal late at night? That can cause a glucose spike and crash. Did you have alcohol? That messes with your sleep. Super stressed? That raises cortisol. By asking these simple questions, you can start to connect the dots and make small changes that have a big impact.
So whether the trigger is this ancient rhythm or some modern metabolic thing, you're awake. Now comes the most important part, the choice. What are you going to do with this quiet, solitary time? You can fall into a really destructive pattern, or you can embrace a really productive one.
So this is path number 1, rumination. Getting caught in that mental hamster wheel we talked about.
Worrying about being awake, dwelling on mistakes from the past, stressing about the future, this path only leads to more anxiety, and it reinforces that mental link between your bed and frustration.
And this is path number 2, cognitive quiet. Instead of fighting being awake, you just accept it. You step into this moment of true solitude, totally free from the notifications, the demands, the noise of the day. This is when your brain's deep thinking and creative networks can finally come alive.
So what this all boils down to is that the experience isn't defined by the fact that you woke up. It's defined by how you respond to it. As you see here, you have the power to reframe this moment, to turn it from a crisis into an opportunity for clarity, reflection, or maybe even creativity.
Okay, so that sounds great, right? But how do we actually do that? How do you stop the rumination in its tracks and actually embrace this cognitive quiet? Let's walk through a clear, step-by-step game plan.
First, reframe your thinking. Just tell yourself, hey, this is okay. It might even be natural. Second, and this is a huge technique from therapy, get out of bed. You have to break the link between your bed and the frustration of not sleeping. It's called stimulus control. Third, do something quiet. Read a book, journal, meditate. Just don't turn on a bright screen. And finally, if those worries do pop up, challenge them. Ask yourself, is this thought actually helpful right now?
And this right here is the ultimate takeaway. Stop trying to force yourself to sleep. The harder you try, the more awake you're going to feel. The real goal is to transform your relationship with being awake in the middle of the night. Make it a peaceful or even a productive part of your life.
So I'll just leave you with this one last thought. The next time you find yourself awake in the quiet of the night, instead of seeing it as your sleep breaking, ask yourself this. What if this is your mind finally breaking through? What brilliant ideas might be waiting for you in that silence?